Good afternoon. I'm Jamie Sands, and I'm the Vice President for IBM for Global Real Estate. I've got the pleasure of the next 15 minutes with you, and I know I'm what stands between you and lunch, so I'm going to do my best to make sure I stay on time and cover off some of the key points. This afternoon, I'm going to talk to you about three things: sustainability within IBM, my role particularly leading global real estate, and how important it is to us both within IBM, but the application of our technology, so you can see how we're using that to solve real-time problems. And then I'm going to talk to you about our role within industry as sustainable technologists. We live in an unprecedented time. Extreme weather events are now commonplace. Temperatures are rising faster than ever predicted. To be competitive in business today, businesses need to be both resilient as well as agile, but most importantly, embrace their role as social and environmental ambassadors. I'm extremely lucky to represent IBM, an organization which has led in this space for decades. As far back as 1965, T.J. Watson, who was son of our founding father, set out our role in what it means to be a good corporate citizen. And he said, essentially, in order to do well, you've got to do good. You've got to embrace what it means to be environmentally and socially responsible, both in terms of the products and the technology that we develop, but the way that we apply them with our clients. And that has been in our DNA ever since. In 1971, we set out our first environmental policy. That was actually years before the United Nations met on the matter. We were also, in the 1980s, the first global multinational corporate to get the ISO 14001 for our energy management system certification. We're very proud of that. And we started carbon tracking and tracing back as far as the 1990s. And as I said, this has really been part of our DNA in terms of the way that we have applied and developed our technology and the way that we work with our clients today. This year, Arvind Krishna, our new CEO, restated our purpose, and he indeed followed along the lines of T.J. Watson to say, we are a catalyst that helps the world work better. And that really is what we try and do, is work with clients to apply our technology to help solve real-life problems, to make things better for both society, people, and planet. I'm extremely lucky because I lead global real estate. And actually, I joined IBM because of this reason, because I had worked in real estate for over 20 years, and I wanted to be part of an organization where I knew I could apply the technology that can make a difference for my industry. And for those of you, and I'm sure you've all had statistics a lot this morning and will over the next couple of days, but we contribute for real estate and facilities about 40% of the world's emissions. So actually, if you lead a real estate organization and you manage sustainability, it's absolutely pivotal that you lead in this space. I thought I'd set out a bit about our size and scale, because I'm sure this kind of complexity is commonplace here in the room today. We've got about 800 locations we run, 50 million square feet of space, a variety of different asset types, actually, from offices through manufacturing, research facilities, and also data centers. We consume annually, just for perspective, the equivalent of the country of Laos in terms of energy. So our impact on the planet is important, and therefore, us leading in this space is incredibly important. We've got nearly 300,000 staff and an operating budget of somewhere close to 2 billion. At the bottom left, you'll see that I've put 188,000 assets tracked, and later on I'm going to talk about my digital transformation and what we've been doing really to solve the problems that we see internally and how we make a difference in terms of achieving our own goals. Those assets are effectively things that you would recognize in a building, things like HVAC systems, but the ability to understand those, drive them, maintain them properly is incredibly important, which is why I list them here as something that, from a real estate perspective, it's really important that we manage. So what are our goals? We've been setting goals now for decades. We recently updated these in 2021. We set out 21 goals, which are extremely ambitious. The top left is to be net zero by 2030. This is a challenge. This is extremely challenging for all of us. You'll also see there, though, other goals on this slide, but let me just talk a bit about what net zero means to us. We are authentic and transparent about our goals. Now, whilst we believe that biological planting of trees and forests is good, we don't count those. So we don't count offsets. So actually, year to year, it's really important to us, through the work that we do within our portfolio, that we're able to deliver against this. Similarly, in terms of our carbon reduction and renewables, we don't buy in one place and offset against another. So I can't buy my renewables in Texas and offset in Dublin. I have to buy them off the local grid. And that's important to us, again, to show leadership in this space and true accuracy and transparency in the way that we drive outcomes. You'll also see here, though, the measures that we take around energy conservation. And my team run between about 800 and 1,500 projects across my sites annually in order to drive outcomes. Incredibly important. Waste, water, though you'll see are on there, and also biodiversity, which is something that we really have started to lead on in this space. We believe that this is something that is increasingly important with the pressure on crops and also the diversity that we're suffering globally as part of the planet crisis. And all of this is underpinned by, as I said, strong governance and the management within the ISO 14001 and 15001 framework. So, how are we doing? Well, we've already seen a 62% reduction, or we've got to 62% against our goals for greenhouse carbon efficiency, and we are 64% up on the carbon goal. We've got to be 70 by 2025, but we see this as extremely challenging. Waste, for many of you who deal with this daily, you will know this is an incredibly tricky subject for anybody who's managing this globally. So whilst we see that we have managed to divert 94% of our waste, this is something that we know is going to prove particularly challenging, and we want to show real leadership in this space over the coming years. We've recently this year also been lucky enough to get gold certified in terms of the Green Lease Leaders Award. This is something that we're particularly proud of. This is something that we have used the application of Tririga, and I'm going to talk about that and our technology shortly. But this is something that we've led on. We're one of only 2 corporates to have this, and this is really a mark of how we've negotiated with landlords in order to drive outcomes in this space. Construction we do, of course, to LEED and BREEAM, and we're very pleased with the progress we're making against that. We're also platinum rated from an EcoVadis perspective as well, which we're very proud of. So now I want to talk about our digital transformation internally, and it's probably something, when I show you the slides, that is going to be a familiar picture to many of you. So, as I said, I joined about 2 years ago, and I have been in industry, as I said, for over 20 years. I joined because I wanted to work in the one place where I felt I could leverage the technology to make a difference within industry. And having led real estate organisations, I wanted to come to Unilever to apply the technology. I must admit, I was a little surprised when I joined to find that it wasn't a particularly clean landscape that I was coming into. So we were leveraging Tririga and Maximo, but they were heavily customised, something that you'll all be familiar with. That was meaning that we weren't able to run the latest upgrades, and I wasn't being able to take both the efficiencies in the way that I was managing my assets or drive real-time data outcomes at the speed that was necessary. We had custom modules, and we were also pulling, and I listened to Marlene, I think the previous speaker, from Excel, which is the bane of most people's lives in terms of thousands of spreadsheets all coming together, forcing manual integration with prone to inaccuracies and errors. Lucky enough to form a partnership with a sustainability software team here within IBM within literally my first week, and set around a joint plan of action to effectively become client zero for the rollout of our technology end-to-end. And that would see us roll out both Tririga and Maximo, which we would reconfigure, but take out all customization. So we would take out all of the customization that had been done and put in the newest versions. About 2 months into my tenure, my head of sustainability came to me and said, look, we've evaluated Tririga and Maximo. We've also evaluated about 30 other technologies on the market. We really need to lead in the space of environmental reporting, but we're concerned that we can't get what we need. And of course, you can imagine, I was loathed at this point to go with another third-party software without consulting back with the IBM team. We did, in the end, select Invisi, And you'll know that the rest is history, because we actually inquired Envisi as a result of the work that we had done 2 years ago in terms of being client zero. So we're extremely proud as a global real estate team to have been part of the M&A deal, and also extremely proud in terms of the way that it has now been accredited being #1 by Verdantix independently. So we run TriRiga. For those of you who aren't familiar with our software packages, I use TriRiga to effectively run the utilization in our buildings, looking at the people coming in and out. COVID has caused all sorts of issues in terms of numbers of people coming back into the building. So being able to make utilization adjustments around the building management system in terms of efficiencies and effectiveness with the ways that we run HVAC, for example, is incredibly important. Maximo is where we run and look after our assets, those 188,000 assets that are in our buildings. The ability to run predictive health, maintenance, and management of those assets is incredibly important. You don't want valves bursting, pipes bursting, refrigerants leaking. These are all things that cause environmental issues, but they're also things that ultimately have an impact on your ability to achieve the goals that you need to. So the efficient asset management within your building is incredibly important. Turbonomic is also a recent acquisition, and I run that across the 106 data centers that we look after. That's really about application management and loading within those buildings, and we've seen up to a 60% reduction in carbon as a result of running Turbonomic. That enables us to really understand how efficiently we're running the mainframes that run within those buildings. And then Envisi is where that we effectively do our reporting, and we're able to take insights and take actions. We've also got the advantage that we've combined that with the weather company. For those of you who don't know, we own the weather company, which has got 40 years of climate data, so that we can look at climate resiliency and accuracy, and we're able to make adjustments across our portfolio. Incredibly important, actually, when you think about the necessity that's being driven by the SEC regulations or the EU directives or the UK task force. The ability to have this comprehensive understanding is important. And that's really, I suspect, what's driving many of you to sit in the room today and feel probably the same kind of pressure that I feel as a head of real estate or sustainability, which is in a few years' time, we're all going to be responsible for reporting out on the accuracy of any publicly stated goals. We're going to have to do that knowing that our data is timely, accurate, that we've linked it correctly back with the goals, and we're going to be subject to the same sign-off that we go through annually for our reports and accounts. And therefore, really understanding what your goals are, what data you need to be able to substantiate those, the technology, the application, and the speed with which you need to do it is going to need to shift in terms of the way that companies do this potentially annually, more through quarterly, into real-time data, insights, and accuracy. And that's now where I'm spending a lot of time with my team in terms of speeding up the applications so that we can get the real-time reporting that we need to annually. Lessons learned, and there are many. I think I've lost my slide. I've had a bit of a slide malfunction as well, but let me talk about some of the lessons I have learned. So the first thing that we've learned is know your data. Know what data you need. Process, and process integration is also incredibly important. You can't underestimate just how important it is to know the processes that input into your technology and the outcomes that you need to drive. You need to have the right governance as well. You need to make sure that this is enterprise-wide. Again, I was lucky enough to follow on from Marlene, who was talking about really knowing and setting this up to be an enterprise-wide pursuit. It needs to be that, and the governance needs to reflect it in order to drive the outcomes that you need in a timely way. I'm now going to go on to talk a bit about sustainable technologies. I'm just going to quickly say, and I think I'm near the end of my time, why this is so important for industry and people today. We surveyed 3,000 CEOs recently, and we can say that about 57% of them recognise that this is really important for a return on investment, but actually not many of them know yet, in fact only 35%, understand the pathway to be able to really predict the outcomes that they need, or to really understand how that they will capitalise upon that return on investment in full. My final slide is really about talking about how IBM, and again, I'm so sorry, my 5 themes has turned into 2, but let me summarize really how it is that IBM can help. First of all, we set out the importance of really knowing what your goals are and working with you on that, particularly then on what data you need to achieve them and how you operationalize it through technology. This is really important, and the key learnings that we have from all of this are really to ensure that it is embedded and ingrained both at the enterprise and across the organization in order to drive the right outcomes. We do have a stand also as you go out on the right-hand side. We've got both lead technologists as well as consultants there who are able to talk to you about this, but I do hope that this afternoon I've been able to provide you some insights on what it is we do within IBM, how we do it, and how we're driving some real outcomes as a result. Thank you.